Hey there, my name is Pravus, and welcome back to more City Skylines in Praetoria. So in the last video, we were able to grow our town a fair bit, work our way up a couple more ranks. We are now on the way to becoming a big town. I did build up a first round of industry at the Corky Butt Farms, which is trucking along at a fairly nice rate. We will be expanding this quite a bit in the near-ish future. What I'm hoping for now is to start seeing cash flow go up sufficiently that I'll be able to, really start expanding a lot. Like buy a tile out over here, start making a metropolitan area, try to go for that high density as much as we can. All of that would certainly be nice. Now, there are a couple things we should definitely do down here in the industry area that has not escaped me. It's just something we need to go ahead and work on probably about now. I need to get myself some warehouses. Now, you might think, well, you've already got some, like, storage and stuff. Yes, but this is only for crops. What happens when we do produce some flour or some meat? That stuff gets loaded on a truck and then sent on a truck all the way off the edge of the map, and it takes forever. You know what's way more efficient, instead of having only 4 trucks over here, is to place down a simple little warehouse. Let's say a small one, for example. Something like this will be fine. Place a couple of these down over here, assign one of these to be for flour, and one of these be for animal products. That way, the 4 trucks over here are used just to quickly deliver it off to the warehouses, and then the 10 trucks over here are dedicated exclusively to sending the crops off. Now, one thing you gotta be very careful about in stuff like industries, and I've experimented with this a fair bit myself. In fact, I'm actually having to re-record this episode because things broke so much. You have to be very careful with industries and these balanced settings, right? Because what I've experienced sometimes will happen for reasons that don't necessarily have to make sense. They just sort of do happen. For some reason, you don't have enough trucks going around for delivering crops where they need to go. And your flour mill says, well, I guess I need to import it, which triggers a weird thing where the trucks are like just kind of perfectly out of sync, and stuff is being imported and nothing is getting delivered from these anymore. So they're exporting the crops, so the trucks are constantly gone off of the fields, never delivering, which means you're queuing even more stuff up. And what I saw happen is I went down to negative several $100,000 a week, and I completely botched my game and was $1 million in debt before it finally righted the ship. Like, that kind of stuff can happen. So my advice, if you're playing with industries and you're struggling with it, make use of storehouses and be kind of slow in general about how you build out your extra storage, right? Because what we're doing, by building out balanced here, now it's going to try to automatically fill these up about halfway before it even tries to export any of these crops. And what can happen if you're trying to fill this stuff up is it says, well, I guess that means we just need to import a frick ton of grain. It's like, that's not what I wanted you to do. We're growing our own grain. No, you need several hundred tons now, right? It's just, it's always been one of the weird quirks of industries, and it's probably people's, like, #1 complaint, and I think understandably so. So I'm going to be careful about how I manage some of this. We're going to make use of the warehouses, and also the positioning of the warehouses here is deliberate because I absolutely plan on turning this into a road and then making a train stop over here so that we can easily export our goods without the trucks even having to go off this direction in the first place. That's going to be one of the goals. Another thing I want to do is probably start up a forestry industry, and I'm thinking we might as well do it down in this general area over here if we can. Because it's going to take a long time for that forestry to get itself going. Y'all know it's true, it just takes a long dang time because industries are slow. And at some point, I'm going to wish that I was making my own paper or my own planks, right? We're going to want those for some of the unique special factories that are able to produce goods. Oh, speaking of which, we actually should probably get one right here, shouldn't we? Yeah, we should probably get ourselves a bakery. I'll do that in just a second, but a bakery is going to be nice. Anyway, I want to get some forestry up and running. It's going to take a while to level up. We're going to need the goods at some point for some of the advanced unique factories. We might as well get going on it now. And just like with the Corky Butt Farms, the first thing to do is to place down one of the main buildings. We'll go for something kind of like this over here. There we go, and that opens up options. We now have tree plantations and sawmills and then log yards to store all of that. I believe one plantation serves something like 1.5 sawmills? Something along those lines. By the way, I've named this the Mathematicon Lumberyard after one of my patron supporters, so thank you very much for your support. You get the Lumberyard! How exciting for everyone involved, am I right? Now, while we build our cash reserves back up and think about where we want to set up some additional zoning, one thing I want to address is something I said in the first video, which some people took slightly the wrong way here. I said that grids were going to be pretty efficient from a traffic perspective. And some people are like, well, that's not true. Roundabouts and other stuff are objectively better. Yeah, I'm very much aware of the Mythbusters episode that objectively proved that roundabouts are better. I don't disagree with that, but what are they better at? And the answer is they're better at traffic flow. Traffic flow is what they are good at. Okay, fair enough. But are there downsides to things like roundabouts? And in a case like City Skylines, the answer is resoundingly yes. The way things work as far as setting up like roads, especially roundabouts, is they kind of have like limitations on how tight they can be, and your roundabouts easily will take up an entire city block in order to be efficient. And believe it or not, roundabouts, if they're any smaller than that, can actually get choked up, and literally the cars just get stuck. I've seen it happen before. I'm hoping we don't have to worry about that, but it can happen. So roundabouts have some issues, right? They're good for traffic flow. They're terrible for space, as opposed to a simple four-way intersection. And then there are other ways to think about it, too. So, for example, I used to be a big proponent of the three-way intersection in City Skylines, a T intersection, right? The idea being that it's better to have a road that mostly just goes straight through and then have one road feeding into it with a stop sign where people ideally can turn right and therefore minimize any of the traffic flow issues. And that's certainly a good way to go. You'd think it's a great compromise between the two. Except then you have to think about the inefficiencies from going from point A to point B, especially if you're making use of one-way roads, where instead of just going in a straight line, you might find yourself in a situation where you have to go straight, then turn right, then go down a block, then turn left, then go straight, then go right. And suddenly you find that car is actively on the road for longer than if they have been in a four-way intersection. So I guess my point is, when I said that it's efficient for traffic, what I should have said was it's efficient enough for our purposes when taking into account the other problems that go along with having four-way intersections versus roundabouts and so on. It's good enough for what I need, good enough for government work, and I mean that basically literally, but not the most efficient at throughput, not the most efficient when it comes to simply having as many cars get through an intersection as possible. So you guys are right, but at the same time, I'm also kind of right. I should have just been more careful in what I said, so I apologize. For those who are a little angry, I'm not trying to say that the four-way intersection is superior. I think it depends. Oh, something else I really need to talk about. So I had to make a bit of a change from the last episode because I noticed a weird bug going on. So we kind of identified earlier that for some reason education didn't seem to be working too well, and you can see that it actually is improving right about now. This is starting to look more reasonable as time goes on. I think that the problem is I had a mod that was active. It's called the Life Cycle Rebalance mod, and the idea behind it is it's supposed to more randomize, the education level of the people coming in, more randomize the way they get to and from work, more randomize how long they're going to live, those kinds of things. And I observed that someone else in the Steam Workshop was complaining that it seemed to be breaking. Oh, there we go. The lumberyard's up to level 2. It was breaking for some reason the education of its citizens, and I thought, okay, that might be the issue. So I had to turn it off, and it does seem to be improving education. So we're starting to get more in a proper direction, and education's going to be important for a lot of things later on. First off, the more educated your population is, the less wasteful they are with things like garbage and stuff, right? But also the higher level jobs they can perform in commercial districts. Eventually, that's going to be crucial when I want to move on to offices for my industry instead of dirty, filthy industrial buildings and factories, right? So it's going to be important to me that we're educated. That's one of the reasons I had to turn it off. It sounded like a cool rebalancing mod, but if it's going to break things, then at the end of the day, it simply isn't going to be worth it now, is it? Anyway, so what else are we figuring out with the Mathematicon Lumberyard? Well, we should have access to a workers' barracks, which is a lot larger than it is for the farms, which I just considered downright unfortunate. We have some saplings we've already placed down, and we have here something called the biomass pellet plant. So before we were making planed timber, now I can start making paper pulp, and that's something I definitely do want to do. So we're going to go ahead and place at least a couple of these down. I need to make sure we place down some roads. Ideally, I think it was right here. Try to get this going. It does take, I don't know, how much can you handle? Well, we need to get jobs here first. I'm trying to see what the production rate is. 3,328. Oh, wow. Okay, so the saplings are worth a lot more. One of these can field 2 of the biomass pellet plants. So you're telling me that all of a sudden I've got a ridiculous amount of timber to work with. Good, 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 good. Yeah, that's going to be great. The important thing is, though, now we do have some additional goods to work with. And just like with the Corgi Butt Farms, it would behoove us to place down at least a couple of these storage yards. I do want them to probably generally be along this area. I'll leave some room for a road in case I want to fit something else over here. But this area doesn't have a lot of trees, so we're not going to be placing down any tree fields over here anyway. And I plan on having another train yard, just like with the Corgi Butt Farms, right over here. So we might as well have our storage yards in a position to easily receive all the plain timber and the paper. And then once we're able to actually use the rail to offload our goods, this will be a nice, efficient way to do it. I think we're about to hit, yep, there you go, level 4 for the Corgi Butt Farms. Clothing factories, farm maintenance buildings, barns, and a slaughterhouse. If we want to be getting a lot more animal products going in, that would be an option for us. Producing a pretty reasonable amount of product. Not as much as we could have, but it's something. And the important thing is you're seeing here in the warehouses that we are actually able to keep our trucks pretty much at full occupancy, or they're always in use. Whereas we're actually no longer using up all the flour mill trucks all the time, so they can really be dedicated to quick, short runs, whereas before they were quickly starting to pile up with products. This is just way more efficient. Everything seems to be going a little bit better. What is this icon, by the way? What is this? What is it, and how do I get rid of it? I don't like... you just get over there. There we go. I've been wondering what that is in the middle of my screen this whole time, and I just realized it's probably not actually from the game. It's probably something I did. Oops. All right. Let's continue expanding out the grid a little bit further, continue to go in our little 12 by 12 blocks. They seem to be working all right. Now, you might be wondering, if we're going to be going on with things like, you know, roundabouts occasionally, but mostly a grid, like, how are we going to be able to sustain our traffic? And I think ultimately, while a lot of people don't like those 4-way intersections, one thing that they're pretty good at is if you want to have kind of some main roads, main avenues, kind of arteries of the city to handle the bulk of your traffic, and then lots of more smaller side roads in order to handle, you know, kind of the in-betweens, that tends to go pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and buy this tile out, right? And I'm thinking we might want to go ahead and start laying out what I think is going to be a good, supersized, more metropolitan grid. And I'll show you what I mean. It's going to be a combination of large roads for the dominant amount of traffic flow, followed by avenues where I can easily attach some mass transit and good, consistent loops, with then smaller roads breaking off of it. Still following the grid, but ideally, it ends up being a lot more efficient than what I've got right now in Old Town, which is good, because that's where all my high density is going to go anyway. We are finally getting to that point where traffic is going to be an issue. Okay, this is the part that I was kind of dreading having to deal with, because it's going to require a pretty sizable rework of several different parts of the city. We'll come back to the big upgrades in the new metropolitan area I was talking about. First things first, let's try to figure out how we're going to deal with this. So the primary part that I struggle with in City Skylines is easily where the highway starts to meet with the city, because this is a lot of traffic that doesn't have to worry about lights here, but once they get here, it all is going to start backing up. We need to find a way to get the flow going here, and there's a couple different ways we could do this. Now, you heard me say flow. What does that mean? It means roundabout? Yeah, maybe. A roundabout's a totally viable option, right? You get rid of all this stuff right along here. You create a road that comes off this direction, then you just have your roundabout right here in the middle, and it goes this way, this way, this way. And that way, if the industrial trucks want to go off over here, they can do so. If these guys want to head toward the commercial and the residential areas, they can do so. All of that is completely fine. That said, the roads are still fairly narrow for the traffic that I kind of want to support. So what I may want to do is go over here and start upgrading some things into either medium or into large roads. The problem with this is once we make these upgrades, it's going to start shifting around a lot of our buildings and breaking some of our zoning, right? So these guys are all going to get deleted in favor of a wider road, for example. And that's fine. We did already leave in a small buffer space, specifically in the blocks for this purpose, but it gets extra tricky once you start dealing with municipal buildings that I have to either pick up and temporarily move, or in this case, Dixie Park. I probably placed this in the worst possible spot for what I was going for. So the real question is what we're going to do as far as this connection. Now, you might think roundabout, and I think that's what I might do as kind of a default option. However, that doesn't mean it's the best solution. So the way that this is going to be better off served is if every single lane in the highway has a specific destination in mind so that no one has to clog up a roundabout. They just pick their lane and they end up in whichever end they want. There we go. Something like this might actually be more efficient than a roundabout. And the way it works, you can kind of see from the lanes here. So this lane is going to be dedicated exclusively just to turning right and getting over into this area around Smith Street. This one, too, will continue to go straight until here, and then you can see it's going to turn right and take this lane, and so on and so forth. The idea being, the cars in City Skylines are kind of, well, stupid. If you put in a roundabout here with multiple lanes, and they know they want to turn right, even if it's 2 turns down, and it's getting completely clogged up in the right lane, they're not smart enough to get over to the left lane and then say, I'll just get around the cars and then go where I want to go. No, they'll stay in that dang lane and completely block it up. This way, we know that the cars are going to be very easily getting where they need to go. The only potential downside is this area is actually a little on the, shall we say, short side. So there's not a lot of room for some car stack up over here. But regardless, I think this is going to be a more efficient solution to getting the traffic out of our highway and over into the areas it needs to go. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if it stays any good. I am not entirely happy with how this is all joining up, though. For example, I don't want people thinking they can turn left to get back on over here. Not that I understand why they would in the first place. But I don't like it when lanes have too many functions. For example, straight and a right turn. That sounds like it's asking for problems. We could open up one of these mods here. The Traffic Manager, I think it's like President Edition or something like that. And specifically say, this only connects here, right? And all of a sudden, this is a right turn only lane. So now we don't have to worry about people that want to go straight trying to clog up the traffic going off in this direction. Frankly, I'd be tempted to do that with a lot of these different roads because I really don't much like it when my roads are multi-purpose. But, oh well. There are some mods out there that have like different road types that are more asymmetrical, like you would find in a lot of places in the United States in particular, but I don't think I have any of that. I thought I had the mass transit DLC. Maybe that does not come with that, though, like I thought it did. I don't know. I might actually do something kind of similar over here, though. Let's say, for example, with this lane, I want this lane to be dedicated only to turning right so that people are able to get onto the highway easily. That way, anyone who wants to go straight isn't preventing people from going to the highway, right? These are the kinds of little tweaks that you can do in City Skylines, and it ends up being a little tedious at times, I admit. But, like, you almost feel like you need to get a freaking degree in, like, urban planning. But notice, we were having traffic issues. Are we having traffic issues over here anymore? Nope. We are having absolutely zero issues. Traffic is flowing exactly where I want it to go. Yes! I think I finally did something right, guys! Oh my god! So here's kind of something I'm thinking for the upcoming blocked-off segment for our metropolitan area. Just one large grid out of many. I know it looks pretty ugly, but the idea behind this is our highway is going to primarily kind of drop off some people off to a large lane road, kind of like this, and then you have one-way roads that pick people off and go from there. What I probably should do in order to kind of optimize the lane efficiency so that people don't try to go straight through on the right lane but only exit is to convert this down to 2-lane until we get to this point. That way, as you can see here, this right lane only has one option. Again, knowing that the stupid people of these cities will sit in that dang right lane even if the other 2 lanes are completely free and they only wanted to go straight in the first place. It's just kind of what they do. So we plan around the stupid, okay? This is something you'll learn when you're an engineer. Sometimes you just plan around the stupid. Should these people make this mistake and ignore your obvious instructions? No, they shouldn't. Will they? Someone will someday. So you should plan around it. That's the idea. This middle segment we're basically going to leave completely open. I'm not going to have anything over here. It's just going to have incredibly bad noise, pollution, and stuff anyway. But what I do want to do is upgrade a bunch of avenues around and around in a big loop around here, probably kind of like this, okay? And the idea behind this is it'll be very easy for me to set up some sort of mass transit or perhaps a tram system or something like that, and it's every 2 or so blocks is serviced by a larger road. So this is the main artery, right? And actually we should probably finish expanding this all the way like so. There we go. This is the main set of arteries for the traffic coming in and around the highway, and then it breaks off into larger roads. Now, if we wanted to be really careful, what I could do is literally demolish those entirely, and either have long strips of, yeah, that's a word. It is actually a word. Strips of buildings along the main large road here, or if we wanted to, we could just have some roads that come over here, but don't quite connect. And this would also be completely valid, and then I can easily hook up some stuff for people to have a walking path. This would make it easier for through traffic to just continue here, rather than have to worry about a four-way stop. So once cars get off of the highway, it's relatively easy to get back onto the main road. That might be something I do along the highway sections, kind of like this. But you sort of see where I'm going with this? This is a grid, but it's a more efficient grid. At least it's supposed to be. We'll see if it actually works the way that I'm envisioning it. By the way, something we know we're going to need are some services. I think it would make sense to go ahead and place down something like a hospital along the large road so that people are able to easily get around. By the way, I meant to place down a little avenue right along here, and if it can go straight across, that's fine. Over here, I had to curve it around one of the struts for the highway, but that's not going to impact anything. So that makes sure we still have plenty of room to get around. We should also go ahead and give ourselves, let's say, a large fire station. We'll do something similar along the large road. Policing, large police station along the main road. Sure, why not? That sounds great. What's this? A police station, small one. It looks very European. How quaint. Very nice. Schools! We know we're going to want some schools if we are going to be having residential in the area. So we'll start by placing some residential zoning around here for now, and I'll add more schools later. High schools, fortunately, can have a much longer range, so I'll probably place you along over here or so. Sure. This should take care of my most immediate needs and allow this place to grow in land value, and people will want to start building over here very rapidly. Oh, and we are now considered to be a big town. Excellent. That's 8,000 population for me. So now I should have access to high density zoning. This is going to be great for me. All right. I'm sorry, all of you who just built your businesses. I extracted as much taxation out of you as I felt like I needed. And now we are going to delete all of said businesses and replace them with high density, commercial, and so on. There we go. Everyone sell off all your properties. Sorry, we're gonna redo it all. Do-over! And now we're getting the big stuff. Excellent. Oh, a building's already on fire. That didn't take long. What were you trying to do? Burn it for the insurance money? And here's the fun thing. As we continue to need additional industry for our city, one thing we can do is go ahead and start finally making use of the office spaces. Yep, now these do require some educated workers, and we've got at least most of our population some level of educated, so this actually is totally doable. How are we doing as far as high school capacity? Just fine. Elementary, for the most part, fine. We really could use some variant of a university. That would not be a bad idea. Can we get some sort of a technical school? We totally could. This might cause some problems from a traffic standpoint unless I get rid of some of the road along over here, which I think would be fine, and we place down a technical school right along like this. Sure. Let's go for something like this, and what it'll do is now give a lot of people living in the high-density areas the opportunity to go and get a highly educated degree, which is going to open up even more options as these offices continue to level up. Although one thing I am going to do is go ahead and delete a lot of this area here. I want to create another park, I think, in this area, just for the increased land values and everything else. Let's see. We'll create a small park, go to a smaller brush, go ahead and draw it out something kind of like this. And we're going to call this one Lexington Square. There we go, after my supporter, Lex. Thank you very much for your patronage. And this is, by the way, not a quid pro quo for you naming a chicken after me in your Stardew Valley stream a few weeks ago. Definitely not. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video. We should be seeing this grow a lot as of the next episode. Industries are looking good, and for the most part, we're making a pretty good amount of money. And this is before we even get all the fun stuff of becoming a small city. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.